Today on CityCast Portland, we have updates on the shooting that left 2 Portland police officers injured, more details on the Gresham family detained and sent to a Texas facility by Border Patrol agents, and a first-hand look into all that's happening in Minneapolis. Joining me on this midweek roundup are CityCast Twin Cities producer Adam Sage and our very own senior producer Julia Fiaioni. It's Wednesday, January 28th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. My coffee!
Oh, no.
Oh, what a bummer. It's tepid. Tepid!
You know what? Just give up on the day.
Maybe I will.
And nothing's worth it anymore.
My coffee, it's so cold. All right, well, anyhow. Welcome, everyone, to our midweek roundup. Julia, thank you for hanging out with me this morning, this cold coffee morning.
Good morning.
Today is the day we look at some of the biggest local news that happened over the weekend, and we have a jam-packed episode for you. We have updates on news we shared last week and a pretty big headline that just came out about a Gresham family detained and shipped across the country by Border Patrol agents. And because CityCast does have an outpost in the Twin Cities, we're checking in with one of their producers, Adam Sage, to get a boots-on-the-ground perspective of what's been happening there this past month. And I know a lot of us have been following the news online, but as we know from experience here in Portland, sometimes the national outlets fail to capture the full truth of a story. So we thought, let's ask our friend Adam. But first, Julia, you've been following a story we covered on Friday and have an update.
Yes. So I actually heard this update through our newsletter editor, Rachel Monahan. She puts together our newsletter every day. And she's talking about how after nearly a week-long manhunt, Portland police yesterday arrested a man on Southeast 82nd Avenue whom they suspected of the shooting of the 2 officers last week. The name of this person is Eric Floyd Oelkers. He's 41 and was previously convicted on a firearms charge and still faces charges stemming from a protest over the defeat of President Trump in the 2020 election. He was also charged with a bias crime in Salem for alleged vandalism of a Black-owned restaurant. And this is from some reporting from the Oregonian. So some interesting connections with this person.
So a man of character overall is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Quite a list of things. This is just someone that they think is the guy, obviously. And just to remind folks, this was just an insane incident that happened last week where basically the police got a call of somebody brandishing a knife out on the street. When they showed up, this person then shot both of the officers who are still recovering right now, but will make a full recovery according to reporting.
Well, I'm glad they found their suspect. I was really surprised he evaded them for as long as he did.
Yeah, me too.
Because they had everyone on it seemed. But good thing, because that was concerning.
Yeah.
I also wanted to share that on Friday, we learned that a Gresham family seeking asylum was detained by U.S. Border Patrol agents and then sent to a detention facility in Dilley, Texas. I hope I'm saying that right. This was the first time an entire family in Oregon was detained and then taken by federal agents in connection with the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. OPB reported that on Thursday, January 15th, 7-year-old Diana Crespo was suffering a nosebleed that lasted for most of the night. So the next morning, both her parents, her father, Yohendry de Jesus Crespo, and mother, Dariani Liseth Gonzalez de Crespo, took her to urgent care at Portland Adventist Health, but they only made it to the medical center's parking lot before they were detained by immigration officers. Now, this was the same parking lot, by the way, where Border Patrol agents shot 2 Venezuelan nationals, Luis David Nino Moncada and Yorlenis Betzbeth Zambrano Contreras. Their detainment only happened 1,000 feet from this shooting, KGW8 reported. Now, Portland Adventists have refuted claims they've been coordinating with the feds. And speaking specifically of this latest incident with the family, their communications manager, CJ Anderson, stated, "No law enforcement agency contacted us, and we did not coordinate with any agency. Adventist Health Portland is here for our community, open, available, and ready to provide care when it's needed most. Patient care remains our priority, regardless of circumstances." Now, the De Crespo family was sent to the same detention facility in Texas where 5-year-old Liam Ramos of Columbia Heights, Minnesota, that's a suburb of Minneapolis, was taken. If you might remember Liam, he's a
Mhm.
small boy in the Spider-Man backpack and blue bunny hat that was photographed in the hands of an immigration officer last week. OPB was able to confirm the facility still showed the mother of the family was still located there, but could not find results for the father or the daughter. The
Mhm.
sister of the mother, Diarani Crespo, told OPB the family decided to immigrate to the U.S. a little over a year ago due to their fear of the Venezuelan government. The Crespo family had a pending asylum application, and the couple had received permits to work legally in the U.S.
Yeah.
They were still in the process of obtaining a lawyer, and Border Patrol officers did not have any warrants.
Yeah, of course.
So that's
Yeah.
where we're at with that.
Claudia, the thing that killed me even more about this situation too is that they had also just recently moved from Utah because of growing issues surrounding immigration crackdown after already having left Venezuela. So this
Yeah.
family's been on the move trying to settle down somewhere that they can feel like their legal paperwork will keep them safe from these things, and clearly that's not happening.
It's absolutely awful. And
Yeah.
we're seeing a massive crackdown. Starting January 6th, the Trump administration launched what officials describe as the largest federal immigration enforcement operation ever carried out, deploying as many as 2,000 federal agents and officers to the Minneapolis area for a sweeping crackdown, tied in part to allegations of daycare fraud involving Somali residents. Now, since this deployment, 2 U.S. citizens were shot dead by federal agents in Minneapolis, and daily protests have grown against ICE presence in the city. As I mentioned, a lot of us are glued to the reports coming through. So we're bringing in CityCast Twin Cities producer Adam Sage to tell us what exactly is going on. Adam, I really appreciate you making the time to chat with us. I know when this kind of coverage happens, it's all hands on deck. I can imagine that you've been living, breathing this reporting. I've also seen videos of you just like literally in the protest, talking to people. I can't imagine how it's been like. Have you had a moment to just take a break?
Not recently, because I'll say it was a very, very long weekend, because we had a marathon day Friday to cover the massive protest, and then it was Saturday morning that Border Patrol agent shot and killed Alex Preddy.
Hmm.
And then the weekend was very busy from there. So not much moment for break recently.
Yeah. How long have you lived in Minneapolis?
I've been in Minneapolis for almost 2 years, so I was not here during 2020. But before I was here, I was actually in Florida. I was a high school math teacher.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you just mentioned that on Friday you were covering this big protest, and I just wanted to let our listeners know that organizers estimated that it was about 50,000 people that attended the ICE Out of Minnesota Day of Truth and Freedom demonstration. It was organized by community leaders, clergy members, and labor unions. And so businesses shut down. People didn't go to school or work. And all this happened again the day before Alex Preddy was shot dead. And I feel like I only saw the scale and magnitude because I've been following your coverage. I've been following coverage of others on social media. And I don't think national outlets did a good job of capturing exactly how large of a protest that really was. Is there anything else you think we should know about what's happening in your city that the national news is also not showing?
Well, it's hard to tell what national is and isn't, because I am just breathing local news right now that
Right.
like every second of my day is consumed by it seemingly. I will add another thing that adds to the magnitude of the Ice Out protest was that it was about 50,000 people on a day where the low was -23 and the high was
Oh my
-10.
gosh.
Wow.
Um, so it was not a pleasant day to be outside, and 50,000 folks packed into downtown Minneapolis. It was larger than the No Kings March, which was huge in its own right. And I think something that might not be getting covered is the level of peacefulness at these
Mm.
protests, where it was just an absolutely massive demonstration, and I didn't see a single police officer out along the route of the march where the streets were shut down. The streets were shut down by the organizers of the protest,
Hmm.
people in high-vis vests, protest marshals that were volunteering there. There were not police running security as you typically see at such a large demonstration.
Hmm.
And there was no property damage. There was no violence. Friday was a nice day for people in the community before
Hmm.
Saturday.
That's so interesting you brought that up, Adam, because that was something that I've also noted when I was looking at coverage, was that I didn't see a lot of city police. And I wasn't sure if that was on purpose. Like, do you know, has a city put out any official statement about the police involvement? Because I feel like all cities, when there's been federal agents deployed, there's always a statement like assuring its people that it's not going to be cooperating with ICE or whatever. But
Right.
then you see them at the protests and everyone feels like there's still cooperation happening in some form or other. So I'm curious, like, was there like a statement or something?
No statement about this protest. And then also there was a protest, I think it was the Saturday after Renee Good was killed, that also saw massive crowds and no police
Mm.
presence there. No statements about either of those protests. We have gotten those statements when there has been local police presence on the same scene as federal immigration enforcement officers. For example, there was a raid in South Minneapolis last June
Mm.
where that occurred, and there was a lot of confusion and a lot of people angry about what they saw as local police violating their separation ordinance. Since then, since that anger and that news story, there has been markedly less police on scenes with federal immigration enforcement also on the
Mm.
scene.
Right. And I ask because broadly people are saying Minneapolis is setting like a new standard for communities organizing against ICE. And part of me wondered, like, is it because there's not that much police involvement? You know? But from what you're seeing, what do you think makes this moment in Minneapolis different from recent protests against ICE across the US? Like we had our own here in Portland.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering from your perspective, what you guys are doing different that it just seems to be working.
I think it's the level of organization
Mm.
here. The neighbors are so connected by this litany of signal chats. Everybody's in like
Mm,
five.
Wow.
And so, because everybody is so interconnected and plugged in right now in this moment, there are often just a ton of people on the scene within minutes of any ICE action starting. I think that's why there are multiple camera angles of the killing of Renee Good and
right.
Mm.
Alex Preddy. There's so much, even when federal law enforcement isn't turning over their evidence to the local agencies and they're saying, we're going to investigate ourselves, there's still so much video evidence out there because there's so many people on the scene whipping their phones out as soon as they hear anything happening
Mm.
here.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, more with CityCast Twin Cities producer Adam Sage. If you or a young reader you know are into fantasy and adventure, you might want to check out The Ascent by Vermont author Christopher Walker. The story centers around John Atwater, a retired Army veteran who finds himself lost in the mystical world of Morelia. And in order to return home, he must oust the oppressive ruler of this strange new land. The book has all the elements of a great fantasy novel, with thrilling action sequences, magical creatures, betrayals, romance, humor, and compelling, relatable characters. If any of this sounds intriguing to you, head over to ChristopherWalkerBooks.com and click on the Buy Now dropdown to purchase The Ascent in paperback, hardcover, or ebook formats. That's ChristopherWalkerBooks.com.
Adam, were you surprised at all by your city's response so far from start to where we are now?
Not really, not by the community response. I mean, Minneapolis was the center of the uprising in 2020. The
Mhm.
activists across the city from every neighborhood were already connected. Many people have said, like, I don't know who to attribute it to because so many people have said it, but that they picked the wrong city
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
the response was ready.
Right. You know, I've been seeing a lot of videos of store owners inviting protesters who are getting gassed into their business and literally saying, "Welcome, you're safe here." And then just seeing them also distraught for them, like that empathy of just like, "I can't believe you guys are going through this." I also heard that Governor Tim Walz deployed the National Guard to protect protesters, and I'm not sure how to hold that. Like, if it's, is that for real? Because, like,
I
and
have
I
a lot
say
of
this,
skepticism around
Mhm.
that, but
okay, the reason I ask is because Trump seemingly so easily was able to nationalize,
uh-huh.
the state National Guard, like here in Oregon. And
Mhm.
so I was curious, what else you heard about that? Because I did see videos, and again, this is just social media videos of people getting donuts and hot coffee from the National Guard.
Yeah, that
Did you see that
happened.
too?
Yeah. That was at the Whipple building, which is ICE's sort of headquarters here. It's where they are taking people when they detain them, and it's the site of daily round-the-clock protesting. 24/7,
Mm,
there have been people protesting at the Whipple building since Renee Good was killed on January 7th. And yeah, National Guard members did come out and hand out donuts and coffee, trying to prove their goodwill to the people there. They're also wearing high vis
Mm.
vests
great.
to help differentiate themselves
Sweet.
from the law enforcement officers that are dressed as if they are military when they're not members of the
Right.
National
Mhm.
Guard. But my understanding of it is that the National Guard is under control of the governor until they're not. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so community members are very, like I said, very skeptical of the role that the National Guard will play here. National Guard has in the past been deployed to quash protests in Minneapolis, and maybe that's why they're trying so hard and giving out their little
Mm.
donuts to the
Mhm.
protesters.
Yeah, Adam, I gotta tell you, it would immediately win me over. I'm so if anybody wants to say sorry to me, if they just give me a hot drink and a donut, I'll be like, "Oh, you're not so bad. Get over here."
A hot drink, and it was like -13 yesterday
I
Yeah,
morning.
that drink is
know.
not staying hot for
Oh.
very long. That's insane.
But I just had to ask because I couldn't imagine that you guys were just like, "Oh, full-hearted, yes,
Mhm.
thank you so much." Because I remember the 2020 protests. I remember who was squashing that.
Mhm.
I also was curious if there were any updates because the three big headlines coming through from Minneapolis were, of course, January 7th, shooting death of Renee Good by Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent. I believe that was the first big one that we heard. And then January 22nd, we saw the picture of a 5-year-old in that little blue knit
Mm.
bunny hat being arrested and taken into custody, and I know he's now in a family detention center in Texas, and there were reports that he was used as bait to get more of his family members out. It's just terrible, terrible stuff. And then, of course, the biggest headline so far now is the Alex Preddy shooting death by ICE agents on January 24th. Or were
Mhm.
they Border Patrol, Adam?
It was a Border Patrol agent.
Border Patrol, thank you
Yep.
for that. Are there any updates for those headlines of, like, what's going on?
So, I guess high level overview in the killing of Renee Good, FBI took sole control of the investigation into the shooting, and the
Mhm.
Department of Justice announced that they would not be investigating Jonathan Ross.
Wow.
Uh, it was very controversial when the FBI took sole control of the investigation because typically it is local investigators in conjunction with the
Mhm.
FBI looking into something like that. And this is a break from what usually happens. With Liam, the little boy who was detained, as far as I know, they are still in Texas. And reporting from NPR News, that's Minnesota Public Radio,
Mhm.
says Liam and his dad entered the country legally using the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol app at a border crossing. And they were in the process of getting their asylum case heard. And the family has no criminal record and no order for deportation.
Mm,
So it's unclear why they were targeted. And in the killing of Alex Preddy, I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing here that I sure hope is being reported on nationally is just how inaccurate the initial claims have been from the Department of Homeland Security about what happened, positioning Alex as approaching them with a gun,
right.
whereas the police chief in Minneapolis confirmed that Alex Preddy had a gun on him with a concealed carry permit. And in the 4 or 5 angles of the video of his killing that are out there, you can see that he never unholstered the weapon. You can see that an agent took the weapon from him prior to shooting him, and that he had one hand on the ground, his other hand on his phone when the first shot came out, shooting him in the back.
Wow.
And just having all of that out there directly contradicting the statements coming from Border Patrol Commander Greg Bavino and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. It seems to me, because I was just writing about this in our newsletter today, it really seems like people aren't taking the narrative from the DHS as much as they were after the killing of Renee Good.
Yeah, to the point where the NRA is asking for a full investigation, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
That this would be like, isn't it ironic, plot twist of events, if what saves us is the
Yeah.
NRA? What saves us from gun violence weaponized by the administration against its own
Yeah.
citizens is the NRA? Like, what is that our final boss?
I don't remember which official made this statement, but there is a government official made a statement that they basically said it's not a good idea to approach law enforcement with a gun, or it ups your
Something like
likelihood of
that.
being killed. And the NRA is like, hey, we want people to have guns.
Oh my
like,
God.
Yeah. Wait, the gun didn't do anything here,
Yeah.
sir. I don't. It's crazy. It's crazy that this is actually. I mean, good. You know, is
I
this?
don't know.
One of the most powerful tweets I saw was someone said, Border Patrol just killed the good guy with a gun. They
Yeah.
always say the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, there he
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask also, like, whatever happened to the daycare fraud allegations that supposedly started this entire ICE crackdown? Because that was the impetus, right? Was that the Trump administration found that a lot of Somali residents were somehow gaming the federal funds for daycares. And this somehow triggered one of the largest immigration crackdowns in the history of the United States in its own borders. So what happened?
It's been so exhausting to talk about and so difficult to talk about now because there has been some real fraud and people have taken advantage of some of Minnesota's social safety net. And there's just so much disinformation about the fraud out there that makes it hard to discuss in a real way and to address it in a real way.
Mhm.
The daycares in particular seem to have spurred from this viral video from Nick Shirley where this strange man visits a bunch of daycares and then goes, "Why won't they let me inside to see the kids?"
Oh God.
And the
Yeah, we're like a little strange white
Yeah,
man
why not?
inside to leave. Like,
So,
what are we doing? Oh my God.
In the fallout of this video, the state of Minnesota sent investigators to all of the daycares featured in the video and found that they were operating normally. It seems to me that the link to Somali folks and fraud spurs from a kernel of truth within a very large fraud investigation known as the Feeding Our Futures scandal, where upwards of $250 million was stolen from COVID relief funds through a variety of shell corporations that pretended they were handing out food to folks when they in fact were not doing that. One thing that people like to leave out of that narrative is that the ringleader of this Feeding Our Futures scandal was a white woman. There were
Interesting.
a lot of Somali individuals that were implicated in the fraud. They don't disclose the race of everybody, or the nationality, rather, of everybody that's been convicted, so you can't pin down an exact number. But 50 plus individuals have pled guilty to that case, and it was a huge, huge deal. However, the lead prosecutor that was investigating this fraud and putting people away recently resigned, along with several other U.S. attorneys, over objections to how the DOJ was directing them to handle the investigation to Renee Good's shooting, and over a general frustration that they haven't been able to focus on fraud since the immigration enforcement surge happened. So
it's almost like it was two completely different things.
Yeah. They claim they're coming in here for the fraud, but the folks that are investigating and prosecuting the fraud have quit because their jobs became too hard and too involved in non-fraud activities.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's, first of all, just crazy to hear that story come back around and have it feel the way it does. But I'm wondering now, like, Adam, do you see any sort of light at the end of the tunnel in all of this? And if there is one, like, what can Portlanders be doing right now to help with that?
Yeah, it's been hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right now, in this moment, there is some. Because it, like I said before, it seems like people aren't taking the narrative that the DHS is putting forward as hard as they did with Renee Good. It was reported Monday that Border Patrol Commander Greg Bavino and some unknown number of Border Patrol agents will be leaving the Twin Cities on Tuesday. And that seems like progress. It seems like some form of retaliation against Greg Bavino for the statements he made following the shooting of Alex Preddy. And in terms of ways to help, money. So many people here don't feel safe leaving their houses. Liam Conejo Ramos was detained coming home from school. A 2-year-old and her father were detained and sent to Texas after they went out to get groceries. So people don't feel safe going to work. They're not making money, and they need help paying their rent and buying food. So if you want to help the folks in Minnesota, it's easy. Standwithminnesota.com. Scroll down to where it says rent relief funds or food support, and there are lots of links to various places where you can give money that will get to those people.
And we'll link to that in our show notes. Adam, thank you once again for taking the time from your busy day reporting on what's going on in your city to speak with us. It feels like it's been a year, and I know it's been like less than a month. It feels so long. Yeah, so if there's anything we could ever do, just let us know, Adam.
Yeah, thank y'all so much.
Before we head out, I did want to mention that our team is looking for a passionate community and brand builder to join us as audience development manager full-time with fabulous benefits. So basically, we really need someone to help us with our local audience growth and specifically create more opportunities to come together as CityCast Portland neighbors. We're hoping you have experience with social media strategy, local partnerships, in-person events, and are excited to work with us, of course. Applications are due this Friday, January 30th, so please get them in as soon as you're able. Go to citycast.fm/jobs for more information and to apply.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or rate and leave us a good review. It really helps us out. And don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm for all the details. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you with Slims.